The title page for Twelfth Night in Shakespeare's First Folio, which is the source text for most modern editions of the play, includes a second title. It says Twelfth Night, or What You Will. So the title of this play is Twelfth Night, or whatever you want it to be. You can choose the title or decide what it's about. It's a play for us to interpret as we wish. And that's awesome. Like, so much of this play is about interpretations and misinterpretations. This play is a series of people interpreting the way something appears and then having that interpretation conflict with reality. Viola and Sebastian, for example, both interpret their experience of the shipwreck as something that killed their sibling. Nearly every character in this play interprets Viola's body as male. Malvolio interprets Maria's letter as a cryptic love letter from Olivia. And the list of these instances of misinterpretation could keep going seemingly forever. And it starts with the title. If I go to see a play called Twelfth Night, I expect that play to be about a Twelfth Night celebration. That's how I would interpret the title. But Twelfth Night, the celebration, is never referenced in the play at all. And like, what's up with that? Did I misinterpret something? The meaning of the title is, I guess, whatever I want it to be. It's not about a 12th Night celebration. So today we're going to read Act 3 of Twelfth Night with a specific focus on interpretations and misinterpretations. And if doing readings of Shakespeare plays like this sounds like it's your kind of thing, please consider subscribing and checking out my other videos. And with that out of the way, let's go through Act 3 of Twelfth Night play-by-play. Act 3 begins with a misinterpretation right away. Viola enters to find Feste dressed as a musician, and she asks him if he lives by means of his instruments. Except she doesn't say it like that. She asks, "Dost thou live by thy tabor?" To which Feste responds, "No, sir, I live by the church," which more obviously has a double meaning. So right away, Viola misinterprets Feste's appearance, then Feste purposefully misinterprets Viola's question. More specifically, he is calling attention to the ambiguity of her question and how it can be interpreted in multiple ways, and his response also contains that ambiguity. He either makes his living through the church, or his house is near the church. And this exchange early in the act establishes that meanings of words can be manipulated and can breed confusion, whether intentionally or not. Or, as Feste says, a sentence is but a cheverel glove to a good wit. How quickly the wrong side may be turned outward. A clever enough person can manipulate the meanings of words and influence the way that they will be interpreted. This back and forth highlights the ways that words operate as signs and signifiers, and how those signs and significations might be manipulated. Feste in particular calls attention to the ways that meaning is contingent, fluid, and ever-shifting. Interpretation can never be stable. There will always be a distance between the reality and the signifiers or words that we use to explain reality. This idea flows throughout the entire play, and Feste tells us this directly. That's why Keir Elam famously said in the introduction to the Arden edition that Feste is the most astute commentator on the play of which he is a part. That's a good line, and the more time I spend with this play, the more I understand it to be true. Viola also understands that there is a distance between appearances and reality, or between words and the things that those words are intended to represent. So these two, Feste and Viola, they get each other, and their connection is made clear in this scene. First, they're both in a sort of disguise. Feste is dressed as a musician, and Viola is dressed as Cesario. Additionally, when Viola tells Feste that she saw thee late at the Count Orsino's, she recognizes the fact that these two characters uniquely can move between Orsino's house and Olivia's house. In this scene, they both seem to acknowledge each other's ability to perform well in both places. Their game recognizes game. And this exchange, this banter between Feste and Viola, the two great performers of this play, is quickly followed by Olivia trying to bridge the gap between her signifiers and her truth, between a ring and what that ring represents. In Act 1, Olivia sent a ring after Cesario, hoping that it would be interpreted as a sign of her love. But Viola, as Cesario, plays it coy. She tells Malvolio that she did indeed leave the ring, even though she didn't. Viola has privately interpreted the sign correctly, but publicly she misinterprets that sign back in Act 2. Since Viola has not publicly acknowledged her understanding of the ring's significance, in Act 3, Olivia asks directly, what might you think of this ring that you knew wasn't yours? In doing so, she's actually asking, what is your interpretation of this symbol, which I mean to be a symbol of my love? And Viola just responds, I pity you, which is not a satisfying answer. Olivia wants her symbols to be correctly interpreted according to her intention, as we all do. But there will always be a distance between the signifier and the signified, and this indeed is a pitiable state for Olivia. Eventually she snaps and finally says, I pray thee, tell me what you thinkest of me. Forget the symbols, let's speak directly. What do you think of me? And Viola responds, that you do think you are not what you are. In other words, she accuses Olivia of misinterpreting herself, misinterpreting her own desires. Olivia believes that she's in love with Cesario, and Viola knows that this belief is based on a misinterpretation of Viola's appearance, but also a misinterpretation of her feelings. She can't be in love with Cesario because Cesario doesn't exist. Olivia obviously doesn't take this well and responds, if I think so, I think the same of you. Well, if I'm like that, then so are you. To which Viola responds, then think you right. I am not what I am. I am pretending to be something I'm not, she says. And you, Olivia, have misinterpreted me. But let's leave that plotline behind for now and move over to Sir Toby, who, along with Fabian, willfully misinterprets Olivia's favors towards Cesario as a great argument of love in her toward Sir Andrew. They say that Olivia's preference for Cesario is actually proof that she favors Sir Andrew. She wants to make him jealous and inspire some sort of masculine bravado in Andrew. And this is transparently nonsense. Sir Toby encourages Sir Andrew to challenge Cesario to a duel, and when they sit down to write the challenge, Sir Andrew is instructed to thou Cesario, meaning he should use the word thou instead of the more polite pronoun you. The hope is that the word thou will be interpreted as an insult. But really, it seems the hope is that Sir Andrew will fight Cesario and it will be fun entertainment for Sir Toby and Fabian. These two just love bringing discomfort and embarrassment to others for their own amusement. Sometimes Malvolio is the one who's positioned as a sort of villain in this play, the character who needs to be overcome so that everybody else can have a happily ever after. There is a strong argument that Sir Toby is the villain. He is selfish and cruel throughout this play. So I guess the play can be interpreted in a bunch of different ways. The villain is whoever you want it to be. You can interpret it as you wish. Later in this act, during the fourth scene, we will see two plots that Sir Toby helped craft that both are intended to embarrass somebody. We will see Malvolio enter in his yellow stockings to woo Olivia, and then we will see Sir Andrew enter with a poorly written challenge addressed to Cesario. So let's take these two comic situations one by one. First, the uptight Malvolio's overconfident interpretation of the letter that he found in Act 2 leads him to strut onto the stage wearing cross-gartered yellow stockings and a big, childish grin. Olivia thinks he's gone mad, and this is a revealing interpretation. When somebody's behavior fails to meet the society's expectations for that somebody, they are perceived as mad. The category of madness, then, is contingent on the expectations that a given society has for behavior. Malvolio is supposed to be sad and civil as the servient for Olivia. Everybody expects him to be the party pooper who keeps order around the house. So when he stops being the party pooper and becomes the party in his bright stockings and making sexual innuendos about thrusting his greatness upon Olivia, he violates his position within the class hierarchy of the play and fails to perform his character correctly. Madness is an interpretation based on expectation, and Feste sets us up well at the start of this act to understand this. Interpretations of words and categories depend on context. Malvolio's behavior is interpreted within the context of Malvolio's normative behavior. How quickly the wrong side may be turned outward. Words themselves and categories are very rascals. Appropriately, it is Malvolio's overconfidence in his interpretation that initiates his downfall. He believes that he understands exactly what the words of that letter mean, even that M-O-A-I, which has no clear interpretation. He also believes that he knows the letter's origins given the handwriting, but all of his interpretations are wrong. Mariah's trick required Malvolio's vanity to work. There are no correct interpretations. And in this play, anybody who believes that they know the correct interpretation of events is going to suffer for it, at least a little bit. The other episode of buffoonery that Sir Toby oversees in the scene comes when Sir Andrew enters with his letter challenging Cesario. Similar to how Malvolio is expected to be the sad and civil servant because of his position, one might think that the knight, Sir Andrew, would know how to fight, but this particular knight is not filled with honor or courage. When asked to play the role of somebody who cares about honor and needs to demonstrate courage in a duel, Sir Andrew becomes a nervous coward. The play once again makes visible the insufficiencies of language and categories. He's a knight, but he sucks at it. The duel between Sir Andrew and Cesario is hilarious because neither of them wants to participate in it, but feels as though they must. They need to meet a social expectation. This particular duel will ultimately be disrupted by Antonio, who is an actual soldier, and he swoops in to protect Viola because he has misidentified her as Sebastian. Another misinterpretation. After drawing his sword, Antonio is arrested, and as he leaves the stage, he asks the person that he believes to be Sebastian for his money back. Viola doesn't have the context to interpret this request correctly, and so Antonio leaves the stage cursing Sebastian for being beautiful but evil. He believes that he was tricked by Sebastian's beauty. How could somebody who looks that good be so bad? So even the selfless love Antonio has for Sebastian reveals itself to be contingent, fluid, and ever-shifting. He recognizes his interpretation of Sebastian's character may have been wrong given his experience in this scene. And of course, his real mistake is believing that the body in front of him is Sebastian's body. And so we leave Act 3 believing that if appearances could just be reconciled with reality, then everything might be okay. If, for once, the body that looks like Sebastian actually is Sebastian, then Antonio would get his purse back. If the letter that looks like it's from Olivia is actually from Olivia, then maybe Malvolio wouldn't look so foolish. If the young man visiting Olivia's house was actually a young man, they might be married. If the knight actually knew how to use a sword, if that same knight realized that the guy pretending to be his friend really just wants to use him for entertainment, then maybe he could just return home and be happy. If only these appearances better reflected their reality, then maybe somebody in this play might have a chance for a correct interpretation, for a happy ending. The characters in this play have a particularly difficult time interpreting the body of Viola. Viola becomes what other characters want her to be. They give her a gender, they project onto her a personality, a social role, a coherent set of motivations, but only the audience knows her true gender, her true social role, her true motivations. Nobody but us knows that she desires Orsino. Everybody misinterprets her. In this play, only Viola and Feste find a way to live within the ambiguities of appearances without trying to reason their way to an interpretation. Only they suspend judgment and wait for the whirligig of time to untie the knots of their circumstance. Perhaps because she's so often misinterpreted, it will be Viola's role to eventually bring appearances and reality into alignment. But we'll have to tackle that in Act 5. Until then, it's good to remember that this play always withholds information from us in the audience and forces us to fill in the gaps ourselves. We can never know enough to be fully confident with our own interpretations. We don't know why Viola decided not to be presented as a eunuch after saying that that was her plan in Act 1. We will never know exactly what Antonio did to upset Orsino. They clearly have different interpretations of that battle. We never find out where Feste was at the start of the play. We never know why Fabian appears out of nowhere to replace Feste in the box tree scene. We'll never find out what MOAI actually stands for. We're given just enough information that we can draw conclusions, but if we're paying attention, we also know enough to know that it's dangerous to be confident in our interpretations. We are shown time and again how quickly the wrong side may be turned outward. We will interpret what we will, just as the second title tells us. And the interpretation that I want to do is based on all the doubling and substitutions that happen in this play. So that's what I'm going to do in the next video as we go through Act 4, play by play. Thank you for watching.